excuse me, of Violence Against Persons Prohibition Law of Ogun State 2019, that is the VAP law. The VAP law was established to protect anyone from physical, emotional, psychological and economic form of abuse. Of course, we knew that the committee was chaired, so to say, by Her Excellency Mrs. Bamidele Abiodun, the governor's wife, and of course has the Commissioner for Women Affairs and Social Development, Honorable Fumi Afuakwe, as the Vice Chairman, and other ex-officials involving the Ministry of Justice, Chief Magistrate in charge of Family Courts, Director of Citizens' Rights Department, Chairperson of Ogun State House of Assembly Committee on Women Affairs and Social Development, among others. So the event, if you remember, took place at the Obas Complex at the Governor's Office. So we want to look at the Violence Against the Persons Prohibition Law, the pros and cons, and of course we have two wonderful guests in the house. Luckily, these are people that should speak about such things like this because they are mothers and they are women. Peju Oshoba, Child Protection Specialist, is here. Good morning.
Good morning.
I could also have Barrister Stella Obona, who is a legal practitioner. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Okay, I'm not alone. Moses Ojawi is also here. Moses, once again, we are set?
Yes, we set.
Okay.
And of course, to our guests, many thanks for joining us. But now, let's start on the...
Why don't we take this report? Let's take this report.
Okay, we have a report.
Let's take this report.
Yes,
yeah,
we'll be back shortly.
We'll take this report that Moses will jump-start the questions from this end.
The Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act, VAP, was passed into law by the National Assembly in May 2015. The act was a result of agitation for protection of persons against the different forms of violence. Ogun State in 2017 passed the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Law, which hasn't been enforced, hence the inauguration of this committee to set the ball rolling.
For every single health worker will be sensitized to identify it and refer appropriately and will act appropriately and also provide psychological support. Because the physical abuse heals, the psychological abuse hardly.
What gives you specific functions? One, ensuring the proper and effective implementation of the VAP law. Two, developing, monitoring and reporting on the implementation of the state action plan for tackling violence against persons. Three, proposing and promoting strategies and guidelines for preventing and combating gender-based violence.
33% of women face one form of violence or the other, while no action was taken in response to 31% of the cases. These are some of the things the enforcement of the law is meant to correct.
Violence against women and domestic violence is unacceptable and punishable. It is not on a private matter, but should be dealt with by the government. It must be prevented. We must battle with it and elevate through measures to help protect the victims,
including the prevention or reduced occurrence of sexual and gender-based violence, justice, including improved investigations and prosecutions. You need to activate the general public to police SGBV. You need to improve outcomes for survivors, especially in relation to physical and mental health and social welfare.
The law does not only protect the female gender, it also protects the male as well.
Violence Against Persons Prohibition Law is one of the efforts by the Ogun State government to support the protection of human rights of the people of Ogun State. It is a law that protects everyone, be it male or female, from physical, emotional, psychological, and economic form of abuse.
Inauguration of this committee is very important and it is timely. This is a law that's been in existence for 3 years and we haven't done anything. For every day that goes without implementing the law, there's a mother, there's a woman, there's a child, there's a man that is suffering violence in a home somewhere.
With the full implementation of the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Law in Ogun State, the state will no longer become a safe haven for violators and their unacceptable acts.
Yeah, the state will no longer become a safe haven for violators and their unacceptable acts. That is talking about Violence Against Persons Prohibition Law. It's been on since 2017,
Yep.
only for it to take its course now. So, okay, Moses.
Well, that has put discussion into the right perspective. Just a background to what we are looking at this morning, and of course, we told you we have two guests. Yes. Mrs. Kuju Oshoba, child protection activist and a legal practitioner, Mrs. Stella Ogbonna. So let me start with the lawyer in our midst. Of course, you're an expert when it comes to interpreting the law. So Violence Against Persons Prohibition Law of Ogun State 2019, can you fill us in? What does this entail?
Well, before I do that, I am here representing International Federation Women Lawyers, the Ogun State chapter, and our chairperson is Mrs. Kemi Oshisoya. Well, I will want to shorten that law by calling it VAP.
Exactly.
So the L or A that will come after it depends whether it's federal we are talking about now or the state. But basically, is for Ogun State to domesticate or adopt the act which was signed into law by former President Goodluck Jonathan few days to his exit in office in May 2015. You see, this law, we will say, has been in place in Ogun State since 2017, but it has not been enforced. That is to say, we have not started using it. The law, as the name goes, is an improvement to several laws that we have in place. It's an improvement on the criminal code. It's an improvement on the penal code. It brings together all forms, so many forms of offenses, the offenses of rape, the offenses of consanguinity and affinity. That is to say, when you have sexual relationship between blood relations or marital relations, it is offenses that it is a law that has to do with women, violence against women, spousal battery. It has to do with now rape having not to do alone with women, because there has been academic exercise going on for a very long time concerning rape being an offense that will be committed against women alone. But this law has gone further to explain penetration, not really through the woman organ. Penetration can be done through the mouth, it can be done through the anus, so it involves a man. So a man can be raped now, a boy can be raped. So this law it has so many other offenses in it that makes it richer. It has even penalty, because it's a law that is relatively new. You know, the punishment and the fines to be paid is relatively higher from what we had in the other laws, because you see where the arms of a judge or a magistrate will be tied when somebody has been convicted, but our old laws we have maybe option of fine of 100 naira. This law now has option of fine for up to ₦1 million. For example, if you have state actors in election offenses, you know, people who represent the state and feel they are the high and mighty, this law will come now. Once they are found guilty, they will be fined and they will be imprisoned. So the law it has lots of innovations, lots of good things. But what we have in Ogun State and so many other states is just for people to be aware that we have this law, and for the law enforcement agents to also be aware. For example, you know, when we have the police prosecuting cases majorly, you have them coming under criminal codes when we are in this part of the nation, and you have maybe those of them in the north coming under the penal code. But sometimes you find out that even when they come to the courts, you find the judge, if it is sexual offenses that have to do with children, the judge or the magistrate will now be the one asking them, why are you not coming under child rights? Because that is the law that has stiffer penalty. So this law now, if it is well known, if we campaign and let people know about it, particularly the law enforcement agents, they'll start using it to charge people. When they are coming, they shouldn't come with the old laws, so to speak.
Okay, okay, thank you. Now, my next question goes to Mrs. Kuji Oshoba.
Yep.
I wanted to break down some of the forms of abuse we have here for some of our viewers, anyways, especially the psychological and economic form of abuse.
As thank you. As contained in the law, well, the economic aspect of that law talks about people when a person is deliberately stopped, deliberately prevented from having some economic freedom. The law says it is wrong. That everyone, and you know, this law, as much as it talks about male and female, you will agree with me that even in recent times, all the reports that have been coming to us have been more of offenses, crime against the female gender. And so there's a lot of emphasis on the female gender. And so the law talks about, we'll look at issues of probably a man trying to stop a woman from exercising her abilities in terms of improving our economy. Before, you would have situations of people, of men saying a woman cannot work, for example. If it's a deliberate act and is affecting the life of that person, then it becomes a crime under this law. And then the psychological abuse that we're talking about, you know, most times when we talk abuse, people look at maybe somebody carrying a stick or something to hit a person. But then there are so many other ways that you can hurt people with your words, with intimidation, without necessarily being physical. You can stop people from expressing their positive emotions. When it comes to that point, when a person is psychologically affected by the actions of another, then it becomes a crime. So those two aspects, it talks about the economic situation of a person, it also talks about the psychological abuse. Those are two forms of abuse that before now, some of the laws that we had did not take them into consideration. But in the VAP law, it is specifically stated as a crime to deprive a person from the freedom of exercising their economic rights.
I know that it's beyond the issue of rape here and there, especially looking at Ms. Peju Oshoba coming from the child protection specialist. Child abuse can also come.
Definitely.
Child battery can also come.
Anything with children.
We've had stories where purported housemates or houseboys have been maltreated. We have issues where mothers or even stepmothers maltreat their children, so to say. And of course, I know that coming from the child protection specialist, you must have had a few cases that you have taken up. When you take this case, or cases up, what kind of cooperation do you get from the law enforcement agents before the coming of VAP?
Yeah.
Mr. Shoba.
Thank you. Before the coming of VAP, with the coming of VAP, you're specific about law enforcement.
Yeah.
The cases you have talked about, they are absolutely correct. But I want to say, it's not just about being a house help or being, any child can be abused and can be abused by anybody. The law does not respect your relationship with a child. Mm-hmm. When you abuse a child, you abuse a child. So it does not matter the status of that child.
It could be the father, it
It
could
could
be
be anybody. And a child, as defined by the law, is anyone under age 18. Okay. So it doesn't matter whether the child is black or white, whether it's a citizen of Nigeria or not. Anybody that abuses a child has abused a child. Having said that, when you talk about cooperation, you have your reasons for being specific about law enforcement. But I want to say this, especially when it comes to issues of, in children you will talk about defilements, right now. Mm. In adults you talk about rape. When it comes to that point, I always say this. The society itself does not seem ready to me to fight this battle.
How?
Before, I said this somewhere, from experience, from my almost 15 years experience in this field. What percentage of cases of abuse of children gets to the police station? So let's take it off from there. People hardly report. Hardly. Why? Because we are used to supporting the perpetrator rather than the victim. And so before you talk about law enforcement, let's talk about ourselves first. How many of these cases do we bring to the fore? From the home, you have people coming to plead for the perpetrator already. Mm. And so many of these cases, which are I always say this, I'm glad the other person here is a lawyer. Many of these cases are criminal cases, but they are treated as civil. They are settled between two people. Meanwhile, there are offenses against the state that should go to the law enforcement agents. So before we come to law enforcement agents, let's ask ourselves, how many of these matters does the society take up as a crime against humanity, against a child particularly, which is my own domain? Now, when you come to law enforcement, it's another ball game entirely. The Child Rights Act, which is another law that should support the VAP law to make it quite effective. She already mentioned it, that people are not even using that. The Child Rights Law of Ogun State does not allow anyone to sit down and settle such matters. But then, by the time you get to law enforcement, the Child Rights Act, let me go to that. The Act, that's the national one, actually talks about having a special police unit for children. That's one of the things that should happen under the Child Rights Act. But we don't have that in many of our stations. What we have is the juvenile welfare centers or something. But even when you come to that, sometimes there are different categories. You have law enforcement agents that are not trained, and so they cannot even identify when there's a case of abuse. You have those who are trained but have chosen to be unprofessional. And so at the end of the day, when these cases come, it is only when the officer or the officers in charge take this as serious crimes that they will be able to act upon it. I am not saying that we have had fantastic support in some levels, but at some other places you find, this is Nigeria, a lot of malpractices, and so the case is killed there. You have, even at the police station, an officer telling a child, you are lying. It is left to the courts to determine whether the child is lying or not. But then a lot of these cases are settled at that point, which should not be. I've said, how many of the cases get to the police station? How many of them that get to the police station get to the court where these laws are going to be used? So those are questions that we should be asking ourselves. I'm saying, as a society, are we ready to fight for our future? Because that's what
the Child Rights Act has been on, you said it, and now we have another Violence Against Person Prohibition Law, VAP. Yes, people will look at it and say, Nigerian government probably cosmetic painting to these things. But when it comes to the real issue, we saw the inauguration of a committee, for example, in Ogun State. You just said it that the Child Rights Act, this was actually signed into law, by President Goodluck Jonathan on the verge of leaving 2 years ago. And looking at the number of cases we have had surrounding something like this, you begin to wonder, are we actually serious? Or we just say, when it is burning, we come out with statements and we relax. Now, as a lawyer, what has been the experience when it comes to cases like this? And how have the profession or people in the profession taken it up to actually see it as their own contribution to the society?
Well, I would say the problem with crimes like this, particularly if we are talking about maybe sexual abuse, is the issue of victimization does not allow people to report, to speak out. And again, this our communal nature is another thing. Because if a woman, for example, finds out that her child has been assaulted sexually by her husband, and she wants to speak out, you know, family and friends will come, they will plead, don't disgrace us, you know, this one, that one. And the woman sometimes may not even want the second ear to hear. She will be dying in silence on her own, and she will not be able, she may confront her husband, that's if she's a strong woman, or she may not be able to do that. So I would say the problem is victimization, but I know that an organization like FIDA, where we belong, ours is to enhance, promote, protect the rights and welfare of the children. We also give them free legal services. We counsel them for free. Then we also give them a sort of dispute resolution for free for those of them that are indigent who cannot pay us our bills. We also try as much as possible to advocate for legislations like this. You see, the thing is that because of the nature of our society, we've not really had so much cooperation. Yes, the law enforcement agents, they try their best, but I, as a person, would have loved a situation where if a child is molested, for example, a girl child, I would have preferred a situation where the investigator would be a woman. Because the woman will because when you see a man investigating rape, there is a level to which he can go. But as a woman, as a mother in your office there, you can lay that child on the table, and with your colleagues, you'll be able to get some facts, may examine the child on your own there. But you know, a man can't do that. So these are the impediments we have. The wrong people doing the right thing. You know, we have people that do not even know that these laws are in place. We need campaign for people to know. For states that have domesticated this law, we have Ebonyi, we have Anambra, we have Oyo, then Ogun State now coming up. Like you said, it's not, there was this visual meeting FIDA had during the lockdown, where the Attorney General of Ogun State said that he wants FIDA to do the talk. You see, what happens in Nigeria, Ogun State not being an example, an exception, is that generally we talk. Talk is cheap. We talk, we form committees.
And we go to sleep.
Yes. But what we require now is to campaign, because this law we are talking about has been in place in Ogun State since 2017. But so many people, even lawyers, do not know that this law is in existence, not even talking about implementation. So I want the government, as they have come alive, forming a committee, let it be indeed that it will be pushed to the people that will use the law.
They should walk the talk.
Yes. And when I mean people that will use the law, the people who bring the criminals to court, they should know about these laws. And let the people begin to feel the effect of the law, because this law is so beautiful that it gives compensation. Even an attempt under this law is an offense. It is punishable. You have not committed the offense. Once you have attempted to, it is criminalized. So that makes it very beautiful. There are so many innovations brought into this law that if the government of the day will allow this law to come to limelight, it's going to curb a lot of excesses of criminals that, you know, will want to violate people's rights.
Okay, Moses, you want to add?
Yes, I want to make a comment on the committee.
From the Ogun State perspective.
Yes, and as a representative of the civil society, I was at that inauguration. I actually delivered a 15-minute lecture there, and I want to say that looking at the beauty of this committee, number one, I want to commend the Ogun State government for going that far. It will interest you that it was after Ogun State inaugurated this committee that the national inaugurated its own, having the law in 2015. At national level, the committee was inaugurated 2 days after Ogun State inaugurated its committee. And I want to say, looking at the membership of that committee, is a mix of public and private. You have members of civil society in the committee. And I think that's a beautiful thing, because the civil society is not going to be silent. I think it's going to give the needed impetus to this committee to work. On the ground, I am aware that already there are things going on, there are actions going on underneath to make this committee effective. And the committee definitely is going to have under it a response team. That response team is the one that implements the actions, that reacts when the reports come. But you know, like I started, it is now the responsibility of the citizens to make these reports, because the committee cannot go into people's homes to detect.
Yeah, sure.
Of course, sensitization, awareness creation, and all that, which we were talking about, will be part of what the committee will do. But then we must take responsibility by ensuring that when these acts are committed, all of us will be there to make some noise about it.
Let me shock you.
Yeah.
As at Sunday, the chairperson, FIDA Ogun State, called me, called some other female lawyers, and we proceeded to one of the divisions of one of the police divisional headquarters in Ogun State here, where allegedly a girl has been raped, and she was called all the way from Abuja. When we got there, when the girl in question came, she came with her stepfather and her mom. You know, the girl in question refused the arrest of the boy.
Definitely, you have situations like that.
And, you know, we became handicapped. Remember, our chairperson was called all the way from Abuja. So we were asking her, see, if we want to push this thing forward, and we need you, we can't be the ones that will give evidence in court. She refused. And the worst aspect of it was that it was at that police station that her stepfather and her stepmother heard about this rape for the first time. But she said her friend encouraged her to talk to a lawyer. It was the lawyer she spoke to that called FIDA International, FIDA president before the chairperson here was called. So you see, so many people are not ready. They are not ready to talk about it. They are not ready to report. As she said, so many people are not believed. And even when they talk, people stigmatize them. Is it not this spoiled girl that has been molested sexually? My son cannot marry her. She can't amount to anything. So people will cover it up. So people are dying in silence. That's what we have.
Okay. All right. We shall not be talking about this without allowing you viewers at home to contribute. I will open the lines as soon as possible. We're looking at the violence against persons prohibition law, the pros and cons, so to say, and we have two wonderful guests in-house, Ms. Peju Oshoba, who is the child protection specialist, here, and Barrister Stella Ogbonna, who is a legal practitioner. Incidentally, both of them are women, so we enjoy it. They talk from the point of view of maybe feeling it, just like you said. Mrs. Barrister Ogbonna said earlier on that it is always good when you are investigating some of these cases, especially when it has to do with sex issues, to have women who can...
As a matter of fact, sorry, the Child Rights Act that talks about the special police unit says that that unit in every police station must be headed by a woman. That's what the act says.
So, Moses will come up with his question while we'll open the lines very soon. You can be part of the program. Let's look at it together. Ask them questions. Bring your... let your voice be heard, and we'll be very happy too if you can have any member of the committee that have been nominated in Ogun State to steer this VAP to actually be part of this program via telephone and tell us more about what the committee is doing to actually make sure that just like you said, it becomes very effective. And Ogun State will not be...
So I don't want to preempt Moses' question, but I'd like to say this. One major issue that we have had in this fight is that there's no coordination.
How?
She just mentioned the case coming to FIDA.
Okay.
That is the way you have cases going to different points. And there's no arrowhead putting together all these reports, trying to chart the course as to this is the way to go. And I think this is a major thing that this committee has to do.
Okay, okay.
In terms of coordinating the actions of different agencies, there are state agencies, there are associations like FIDA, there are NGOs, everybody working in silos. That is a major problem in the use of this law. And so the committee will be expected to act as the coordinating point for the fight against violence against persons.
The arrowhead for coordination.
For coordination, yeah.
What's this?
Barrister, unfortunately, there have been a rise in these cases, rape cases, defilement cases. Just a few days, the IGP said about 770 cases have been reported from January till now. And I also recall that last week, some activists called for castration or capital punishment for these perpetrators. So I want to know, under this law, the VAP law, what is the punishment for these criminals, for the perpetrators of these crimes?
Well, the punishment is also similar. That is differ a little bit, but similar in some cases. That's why some people will also say that part of the disadvantages of this legislation is the issue of duplicity, because most of the things are contained in the other laws. But the thing about it is that this law is all-encompassing, and it has really encouraged people. It's more like speak out. You'll be able to speak out, you'll be able to be compensated. It's not only the punishment. If you are punished, you also compensate the victim. So that's one good thing about this legislation that we are talking about. So, in the other laws, the concentration was on the on the perpetrator alone. Okay, you are going to prison, or you pay option or fine of this. No person ever thought about the victim. But this law now, having taken care of that, is also taking care of the victim. So that's the beauty of it.
Okay, Mrs. Pejo Oshoba, as an activist, I know that...
you come with your question. Let's take this call.
I don't like the use of that.
Hello. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning. All right, I saw the call have been there. Let's see. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning.
Hello.
Yeah, good morning.
I want to tell you that...
Your name first. Your name. You are calling from where?
Calling from Onyoro.
Okay, you're welcome. Go ahead.
I want to tell you that the rape vaccine of Dr.
Okay, okay.
This should be included in the law.
That's harassment.
Harassment, yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Can we take...
I think the laws, it takes
it's
care
part of it.
Those issues.
Let's take one more, then Moses will come with... you have a question from the activist. I won't forget. Hello, good morning. Yeah, good morning, your name?
My name is Jimmy.
James. Hello? Are you still there? Hello? All right, I think we lost him. Network problem. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning. Hello? So many callers. We'll just try and pick. Hello? Hello, good morning. Yeah, Moses, you can come with your question. We'll pick the calls later.
Okay, Mrs. Kujoshova.
Okay.
There's a discourse or a conversation going on, especially on social media, in which people talking about marital rape, saying husbands. And it's actually divided. Why some people believe that yes, a thief should be given to, like, that should be criminalized. Some are saying no, it's not possible, for husbands, to rape their wives. I just want your take on that.
I'm surprised you're asking me this question because we have a lawyer here who will interpret it. But for me, I always say that the issue of consent is key here. The issue of consent is key. I do not know whether the laws in Nigeria recognize spousal rape. I'm not sure. She will tell us. But when you are talking about it as a social media talk, exactly, and we're talking about it as I will talk as an individual, I do not appreciate personally that a man would force a woman just because it's his wife. But talking about the law, I don't know. I hope you understand me. Okay. But then I think the issue of sex, let's use the word, should be something that a person should consent to. It doesn't have to be forced. Nobody should be. It's not something that should be done against a person's will, whether you are married to that person or not. But concerning the law, I don't want to make a comment.
You are talking from the moral point of view.
Talking
about the law.
That's why I said the law is to talk about the law.
Well, there's no law like rape in marriage.
In Nigeria?
In Nigeria. Reason being that, you see, once a person is married, in our own clan here, it is assumed that you have consented to sexual relationship with your spouse. In as much as we know that the parties should have sex, enjoy it, our own environment here has not gone to that level where you say a husband has raped his wife. Because if that is done, what if I want my husband to buy a new car for me and he doesn't have the wherewithal to do it for me as at that point in time, and he demands sex from me, and I feel aggrieved because he has not done it. I can also allege him that he has raped me. So that may be...
Even when you see signs of violence.
How does the woman now, anyway.
Well, let me ask the lawyer, what if you see signs of violence?
Yes, we know.
On the body of the wife?
No, we know those signs are there. But what has happened is that instead of calling it rape, it will be tagged, yes. Okay. So we don't, our law in Nigeria has not gotten to that level where you say a husband has raped his wife.
Okay, let's see if you can just take
marriage.
Some few calls before we go ahead with the question. Hello, good morning.
Hello.
Yeah, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Your name?
I'm from Shaga.
Okay, welcome. Go ahead.
On this program that you are doing,
yeah.
Mrs. Abutayo from Shaga.
Go ahead, Mrs. Abutayo from Shagam. Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes. I was a lawyer.
Okay.
About the child abuse that they were talking about. If a child is being abused and the family, or let me say a woman is being abused by husband or any other person, and that person doesn't know how to go to a lawyer, or maybe is there a place where that person can report the case to?
Okay.
That is one. Are you with
Yeah, go ahead.
That is one. Also, I want to know, the custom in Yoruba land here, if you have been abused, you'll be told not to reveal your secret so that people will not molest you. You understand?
Stigmatization.
If you say this out, you may not be recognized.
You'll be stigmatized. Yeah, go ahead.
Making gestures to you.
Yeah.
So in this situation, to avoid this thing, to avoid being can I say calm down people, people are dying silently. And the family, they will not want you they won't want you to say something out so as not be disgraced.
Okay.
Please, how can this organization help such a situation?
Okay, thank you very much. You've made your point. I hope you noted those questions. So let's see. Thank you very much, Mrs. From Shagamu. I'll call her from Shagamu. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. We'll just take one more. Let's take one more call. Maybe we have questions so that we can answer these questions together. Our guests are taking note of the questions. I hope you had. Yes. Well, I'll remind you if you. Okay, thank you very much. Let's take another call so that we can just answer the questions together. Hello, good morning. Okay, we lost that. There's a caller here. Let's take one more call, or else we just go to that. Okay, there's a call. Hello, good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, your name?
My name is Pastor Olukide.
Okay, from where?
This is Pastor Olukide from Olukide.
Okay, you're welcome to the program. Quickly, you have a question or you want to make a contribution?
My question is this. We are saying that raping. My question is this. Raping issues nowadays. My own suggestion is that the government has its own role to play very well. In a way whereby somebody has been arrested for raping somebody, I think the best thing for the government to take action immediately. And that's why you do is direct punishment or what are regards as let me put this way. Anybody that been caught, let them punish them immediately so that people will know that this is an offense.
Thank you.
And to the married people, the matter you are trying to contact with your man is that if any man that are married, both husband and wife, they are now one. So nobody should have to wife them.
Okay. Thank you very much, Pastor. Thank you. Let's go to okay, Barrister, you had the first question from that woman. When this happened, where do they take it to? If they can't find a lawyer within, what should be the first step? Maybe that's just the first.
There are less those of them in the rural areas, so to speak, but there are lawyers everywhere. For example, in Ogun State, we have female lawyers in every zone, like the person that called from Shagam. Even if she does not know any law firm to walk into, she can just walk into the court's premises. Any female lawyer she sees around there, she can approach the person. The person is approachable. Tell the female lawyer to link you to FIDA Ogun State, and that will do it. Then talking about the publicity because of victimization, you see, when these cases are prosecuted, sometimes you find out that the judges or the magistrates will do trial in camera.
Okay.
It will not be done in open court, so as to preserve the integrity of the victim.
There's another question for you, but later you took note of one thing, and I want you to react.
Yeah.
Because my question, just take note, is that at times, just like in many criminal cases, we hear celebrated cases, we hear press conferences by police, press conferences, this one has been accused of rape, raping his daughter, raping a 70-year-old. That will be the last you hear of that case. But I'll come back to you. Do those cases get to conclusion? Somebody asked. Then how fast? But before then, your own. You took note of...
I was going to say that in terms of reporting, where to report. Before, she has talked about FIDA, but we know that, of course, many times we say government will not do anything, this one will not do it, but I always encourage people to make is available. And so anybody around that is able to find the social welfare office of the Ministry of Women Affairs, that may be a point where you could make your report. Those are offices that are around all the local government areas. And then there are private initiatives, there are NGOs around who support people. If you are able to identify any of them around you, if you are scared of going to the police, you are scared, because not everybody wants to go to the lawyer, because sometimes we have this impression around here that, okay, no, a lawyer is going to ask for money, but she has just said it. So the point is, whichever way, you will still find a place where you must, or you can talk to people. It's not that these things don't exist, they are there, but people either shy away from going there, or they are scared of going to these places. Let me say this, it's not part of the question, but I want to say that the VAP law is not just concerning sexual offenses.
Yeah, sure.
Female genital mutilation is a part of the VAP law. Political violence is a part of the VAP law. We talked about psychological abuse, we talked about economic. So it's not just sexual or rape matters. So this
we have also forbidden cultural practices. They are all part of
yes, all these tribal marks and all the stuff. They are all part
Wash
of
the
this.
cups, give a woman the water to drink to prove her innocence.
Okay, there's widowhood practices too. They are all part of this law. So the committee itself that the law empowers, it is the law that says there must be a committee. That committee is not just going to be looking to rape cases. It's going to look at the implementation of the VAP law, the totality, holistically, the totality of the VAP law. So people should not think that, okay, the VAP law is just talking about if a person has been raped. If a widow is being maltreated, it is part of it. If it's political violence, it is part of it. So all these issues are covered.
We don't have too much time. So Barrister, why should justice be delayed? Why shouldn't we get justice promptly, just like someone suggested?
Justice.
Some of these cases, we only hear when they happen. We don't know what becomes of some of these cases on the long run, and we lose interest.
Well, the thing is that most times, we have so many cases in court, and these cases take turn. A magistrate or a judge will have to take a bite of so many other cases, But now, in Ogun State, because we have the judges, we have the magistrates rendering returns, so cases are faster now. But one thing I've also observed is that apart from maybe cases being a little bit delayed, people get tired to follow these cases. If you do it in the court of first instance, there could be an appeal, but you see people will no longer follow it, and they will say the case has ended. It doesn't end like that most times.
Okay, Moses, quickly.
Time's really fast spent, but let me just quickly say this, and I want a quick answer. These days, we've seen women, ladies, girls, coming out to expose, of course, their abusers. So, and at times, 5 years after, 7 years, 10 years after, can they still get justice?
Justice, yeah.
Despite the fact that there's little or no evidence.
Yeah, sure. People are being encouraged to come up now to actually talk about rape cases or violence that have happened to them 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Can they still be prosecuted?
No, they can get justice because mainly, if it happens, there is medical examination. And once you have the medical report, it flies.
Even 10 years after?
It flies. It does. So the person can get justice. I know there was a case that our FIDA chairperson was handling in Ijebu some years back. That thing happened when the child was a baby, and during trial, the child was almost like 9 years.
Okay, thank you. We have to go now. Many thanks to our guests, Mrs. Puju Oshoba and Mrs. Stella Ogbonna. Aki.
Yes, of course, that's how it's going to be. It's been a wonderful one. And of course, for those viewers who managed to get through, we hope that we have answered your curiosity and your question. But like you said, it's not only about rape, it's not only about sex, it's an all-encompassing thing. And the two guests have agreed that that committee should be the arrowhead to coordinate all things so that the society will be a better place to stay. Thank you very much for being part of the program. is the Wednesday edition of Newdawn. Once again, let me thank Mrs. Peju Oshoba of the Child Protections Act, Child Protection Specialist NGO. Thank you very much. And of course, Barrister Stella Agbona, I want to thank you very much. I cannot say you are my learned friend because I'm not. All right, that's how it's going to be. And of course, Moses Ojeomi has been my partner on the program today. Don't forget that Newdawn will return on Friday with another set of presenters. Thank you very much for watching. Bye for now.
This is OGTV.